our day. So I'm going to share 2 things because this is supposed to be a celebration, and then I'm going to pass it on. The first thing is why I'm wearing red. Most folks would not wear red to an event like this. Christopher ran my past mayoral campaign here in Baltimore. And for those of you that know me, you know I wear black. That's my go-to color. And he threatened me with a stylist if I didn't learn how to wear a different color. And he said I needed to learn how to wear red because red was a power color. So this dress is for him.
Beautiful.
And the second thing I want to share is how he kept me from catching a charge and getting arrested. So during the campaign, we had some issues here in the city with recycling and garbage pickup and the mayor being unable to kind of get the city cleaned up. So we spoke with some folks that own dump trucks and made arrangements for them to come into the city and pick up the trash and deposit it on the steps of City Hall for the mayor to make it easier for him to get the trash. And we said, well, you know, you could do that, but we might want to make sure we have someone on speed dial and veil ready. And I said, well, that's what you're for. So he talked me out of it. He actually went behind my back and talked to my husband. That guy there. And they both decided it was not in my best interest. But Chris was the type of person, Dr. Metzler was the type of person that although he had a serious side, he loved life. He loved fun. He loved adventures, and he loved getting in trouble. How? You would not know that from seeing him on TV or in the media. But he had a wicked sense of humor. So, as we're here today, I really want everyone to remember that this is truly a celebration. Celebration of a man that touched each and every one of us in a different way, and that we will carry with us for the rest of our days. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thanks again, Pastor Wright. So I've known Dr. Metzler, I'm 33 now, since I was 18 years old. I was a freshman at Morehouse. And my freshman year, President Obama was just elected. And here I am, conservative kid out of Texas, going to Morehouse College, starting a Republican chapter. And there were three black Republicans, 4 black Republicans at the time that I was introduced to. Dr. Timothy Johnson, who passed away, Dean Nelson recently passed away, Lenny McAllister, who's still here, and Dr. M. And all of those guys sort of mentored me throughout my matriculation through Morehouse. And Dr. M and I, we just became super close. I mean, we talked all the time, we text all the time. Doc, I'm not sure about this political thing, or I'm going to jump on this campaign, or I'm thinking about picking up this client politically or this client in the corporate space. Or if my girlfriend was upset with me, Doc, I don't really know, am I handling this properly? And we would laugh about all of those things. But this is, I was talking to my parents about this, and my mom said something that was very interesting to me. She said, every once in a while, when you're young, you'll meet a very small number of people who will forever change your life. And the expectation when you're young is that those people will be around forever. And thinking about Dr. Metzler, you just assume forever. My girlfriend's getting ready to apply to Oxford. We'll be engaged soon. Doc was helping her through that process. And her and I were talking about it, and she just said, babe, I can't believe, no more calls about the Oxford stuff where you need to rewrite the application statement. This isn't good enough. This isn't up to Oxford standards. You don't think that's going to ever come. I don't get the calls of, I just saw you on CNN and you need to change and reframe your argument here. You could have had a stronger argument. Or your data was kind of off. I know you're a data guy, but go back and look at the data. All of those conversations are gone. And you don't think about it until you do. And then when you think about it, you think, wow, this was my friend, this was my mentor. This was someone who climbed the heights of success, particularly as a black man. That's not all that common. And so when you look at someone like Dr. Metzler as an 18-year-old who's now 33, I'm thinking, wow, if there's anyone I'd like to emulate in terms of academic success and pedigree and the impacts that he's had on people's lives, Doc is that person. At least he was for me. I remember our last call a couple weeks ago. He said, hey, I'm coming up. You and I, we're going to get to dinner. We need to finish this Oxford stuff. Oxford is a very, very long process. You get into Oxford, then you have to apply for the actual college, and it's a lengthy process, unlike colleges in the United States. And so Nai's in the kitchen. She's cooking. He said, well, let me talk to my girl, because you're always doing 50 million things. So I said, babe, here's Dr. M. Put him on speakerphone. I go back in the living room watching politics or something. And they're talking and talking. And she said, babe, all right, Doc wants to talk to you. I go into the kitchen, grab the phone. And I said, all right, Doc, so 2 weeks, right? He said, yeah, I'll be there in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, put it on your calendar. Don't go anywhere. And we're going to go to dinner. We're going to get this done. And we were looking forward to it. I was looking forward to seeing my mentor, talking politics, talking about life, talking about international affairs, and talking about my own future, starting my own family, and making sure that I was doing everything that he was saying. You got to do this right. All the details matter. You got to be as close to perfect as you can be. And when I wasn't, he would say, you can do better than that. I know, Doc. All right, I'm going to get it right the next time. The point that I'm trying to make here is Dr. Metzler had an indelible impact on my life and on the life of so many people that I see in this room. Chris Perdone, Pastor Wright, Lenny, Joy, Dina, Dee Dee, Jason, so many people here. And I just hope that as I traverse through this unpredictable thing we call life, I hope that I live it up to what he would say are the best standards. I'll never forget this, and then I'll pass it on. We were talking, maybe this was a couple months ago. I was writing a column about something, and Doc and I would always talk about philosophy, because at Morehouse, my undergraduate degree is in political theory, so we'd always talk about the great masters. And I was reflecting on what's going on in the country and what's going on around the world in terms of politics, and sort of this disintegration that we're seeing amongst all different types of people. And Doc said, go back and read Plato's Cave. And I'm like, Doc, that's like the most basic story of anybody who studies philosophy. That's like number one you go back and read. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll go back and reread it. I did. Called him the next day. I was like, all right, Doc, I know the story, but I reread it anyway because you told me to. What's the point? And he said, you see the shadows on the wall that Plato wrote about? He said, as you live life, don't be afraid of the shadows. And I didn't get what he was saying to me at the time, but now I do. And what he was saying was take risks. Life is short. Live it to the fullest potential that you can. Don't leave any door unopened. And always try to leave a good impression. And every person that I have ever met who knew Dr. M, all the people that I have since come to know who knew him, they all say the impression that this man left on my life was unlike one I've ever seen or any other person I've ever met. And I know that to be true. So I hope that as I continue on and he's looking down, Miss Ingrid, I hope he smiles and says, that's my boy. He's living it to the fullest. He's not afraid of the shadows on the wall. I want to introduce my best friend, Chris Perdone, who's another mentee of Dr. Metzler. Thank you all so much.
Thanks so much. So I'm going to try to, I'll try to make this as quick as I can, as much as I can. I think Shamago said it best, so thank you as always. Doc was certainly a big impact on both of our lives. We sat down on a continuous basis, right? And I think the last couple of years were the most interesting. And Miss Ingrid, many of you don't know, that's Dr. Metzler's mom. It's funny because when she saw me today, the first thing she talked about was how he yelled at me every day. And then she said, she talked about they were on the phone, and if I didn't call him for 2 days, it would be another conversation about something else. And thanks for the memory, by the way. But look, I told Doc and showed my other story. I said, look, man, a couple years ago, I was just tired. When you looked at, and I hate talking about politics, but when you're part of a particular administration, it was very tumultuous, right? And being a part of that was a lot. I remember one day he called me during the campaign, and I was on C-SPAN gambling show. It was after the election called fraud, and Doc would come to Chris. You realize what's happening, what's actually going on. And this is probably 10 seconds after the press conference ended. And I was in the forefront of the press conference. We were in Nevada. It was just really a tough ordeal. And I said, Doc, I'm tired. I was done with politics. It was a lot, very stressful. And it used to be, I'm 39 now, but it used to be fun to me. And I've always said, when something's not fun, whatever I do, I don't care, whatever it is in life, I didn't want to do it anymore. And it became that. It just became so, polarizing. And whatever side you're on, it's just so dramatic, especially being a black historian, it's just too much for me. So we encouraged me to go beyond politics. And so we made a deal. He said, if you do it, I'll be with you every step of the way. And so he was a major help with me transitioning from TV and politics to sports. And that was a whole other animal, and that's when the yelling started. And so we were very blessed with the opportunity to help with the NFL and expanding the league locally through flag and through other resources. And so I remember we were in New York, and I was getting ready for the big meeting in New York with the VP of the NFL, and Doc called me like 100 times. And before I walked into a Chris, make sure you don't say this, make sure you say that. And his whole thing was to sort of remember how big this is, the level they were on. And even after that, I got off the meeting and said, acting great, what happened? It wasn't good enough. I'm like, well, Doctor, what? We got the deal, what else supposed to do? So then they gave us a license. That wasn't good enough. It's like, my goodness. So we went over to the Bahamas together and launched the whole program. And as soon as he walks in, who's this person? Who's that person? I don't like her. I'm like, no, they helped me to $50,000, $100,000 sponsor. I don't care. He's not different. It was always something, but he constantly helped me be at my best. And even when we started the conference, it was okay. What are we doing with Grenada? Obviously, we know Grenada is a special place. And what are we doing with Jamaica? It was a constant push. So I definitely don't have that young in my ear. And to show Michael's point, it makes you want to continue to go faster and much better and harder. So it'll definitely missed by me very much so. I think that's all Sir Mike and I talk about now is Doc on all of our calls, but I can't explain the type of friendship that we had. I mean, everything from how I'm too old, I need to get married and settle down, to
girlfriends, Chris.
He never proved them. He never did. But yeah, so I was on a certain level, a certain class, and you know how that went.
Oh, yeah.
And it's tough on you too. So yeah, it's definitely we miss, and it's certainly hard to get to. And so I want to introduce someone who's going to sing a song. She actually flew from the Bahamas, and some of you in the room know, but Doc and I obviously went over there, and with our expansion that we're helping the NFL in the Caribbean, it means a lot to us. It's a second home to me. Stacey Campbell Marshall is a part of our program. Her husband is a head coach for us out there, and still is very much involved today. She is a media personality in the Bahamas on both radio and television. So I want to introduce my good friend and a great woman, Stacey Campbell Marshall.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure. I'm glad to be here to celebrate his life with you. When Chris asked me, could I come? I was like, absolutely. And we were looking forward to doing and getting to know Dr. Metzler. And I bring greetings on behalf of the Bahamas, on behalf of the Football Federation down there. My husband, Dr. Dwight Marshall, is a chiropractor and works closely with the teams. And I hope that this song speaks a little bit to when you make a difference with your life.
If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or a song, if I can show somebody he is trying my duty like a Christian ought. If I can bring back beauty to a world abroad, and if I can spread love's message like the Master taught, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. No, my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. No, my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living shall not, no, my living shall not, then my living shall not be in
Wow, that was amazing. That was beautiful. So, in this part of the program, we're going to transition a little bit and hear from some other individuals that Dr. Metzler has had a huge, substantial, significant impact in their lives. We're going to start off with Dina and Dee Dee Bass, who worked very, very closely with Dr. M for a very, very long time. And I know these two incredible women very, very well ever since I was a young boy. I'm making you guys feel old, I'm sorry.
52, all 51, all of these. Okay, so here's the thing. Talk with it, okay? So here's the thing. Listening to all these whippersnappers, we are Gen X and proud of it, okay? I'm Dina Bass Williams, and I'm Dee Dee Bass Wilbon. And normally when people come to our firms, when we work with them at Bass Public Affairs, first they're clients and then they become friends. But with Chris, he was actually our friend first, and then he said, hey, I want to hire you guys, and he hired us. And he became a client, and then he became family. Our mom, our dad, our husbands, I'm a professional aunt, no kids, so my niece and my nephew began to know and love him. And even as we drove, from DC to Baltimore, that is when we finally began to accept the fact that this is true. And Michael and Chris Prudhomme. I will be open to admit, and Mama, I'm so sorry, but I was about to start an international incident because I just refused. I refused. And I called Michael. I said, it is not so, Michael. And I sent him on the case. And he told me, he called me back, and it was true. But I was so, it could not, he's too vibrant, he's too alive, it cannot be so, it cannot be so. We refuse to believe that it was so. We love him so much. We have learned so much from him. And he is Mr. Sophistication. And he is a straight fool. Mr. Sophistication. And he will make us laugh to the point of tears.
I was always we would get on a call and he would say, okay, Dina, you're going to have to be the one to go in and be really calm about it because Dee Dee, she's not going to be able to be calm. She's going to be the one who's going to go completely berserk, and I'm going to have bail money.
Metzler knew how to rein in.
And he was the only one that could rein me in.
He
was
could rein
the only
in the crazy.
one.
What will we do now that we do not have Dr. Metzler to rein in her crazy? And these young men, they know this is.
I'm the crazy.
Nuts.
And he was the only one that could really rein me in.
We don't know what we're going to do without someone to rein in the crazy.
Chris is and was an amazing individual. And if there are three things that we really learned and will remember about him is that he was so loyal. If Chris was your friend, he was your friend. He had your back coming and going. If you called him, he answered. And when I say we called him way too much, he was like, okay, listen, I'm on a plane, I'm gonna call you right back. He's getting on the plane, I'm off the plane, okay, what do you need?
We really
always
should have
answered.
paid him.
We really should have been paying him because we were always calling
Legal
Chris asking a
counsel,
question about
political
something.
counsel.
Everything. Me raising two kids, he's like, okay, Dee Dee, you really can't say that to the teachers or your friends. You will lose everything. Okay, Chris.
He was our COVID strategy. At the beginning of COVID, we didn't know what to do with our mom in Georgia. We didn't know what we were doing. Well, none of us knew what we were doing, really, right?
But we really did. And Chris knew what we needed to
gave
do.
us our COVID strategy.
He
to
did.
deal with our mom, baby boomers in Georgia.
Chris made us laugh. He was very serious, as you all know, but Chris loved to laugh, and I can hear his laugh. I can hear his laugh during the podcast. I can hear his laugh on the phone. I can hear his laugh when I'm saying, Chris, your camera is so jacked up. You got to move it. You're not doing this right, Chris. And he's like, okay, Dee Dee, just give me a minute. Tell me we'll call him back. He always talked about living life to the fullest. And Chris was like, you guys got to travel, you got to do this, you got to try this. And he knows I'm a Georgia girl, and I'm a meat and potatoes person. And it takes forever for me to try anything new. And Chris could get me to try something new or to do something new. So we love Chris. We will always think about him wearing our Metzler on the mic t-shirts. We just appreciate everything that he has and continues to do for us. And his spirit, he's just an amazing individual. Through and through, he was just, as my mother-in-law, he was salt of the earth, he was good. He was good, and we appreciate him, and we love him dearly. And
We miss him.
We miss him.
We miss him to the, our toes hurt, we miss him so much.
we do, we miss him. So, we love you, Chris. We love you. We love you.
Don't talk about age. No more age.
No more age.
You gotta remind me I'm getting older. Okay, thank you, Dina and Dee Dee. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is what's so amazing about Doc. All of these stories, you're constantly hearing this perpetual good nature of how this man impacted so many people's lives. And again, you're thinking about my own life and being older, you just hope. You hear this from your grandparents, you hear this from your parents. Like when you pass on, you want people to say good things about you. I hear that a lot from my grandfather in particular. You're young, you're like, all right, I'm doing everything right. I got it all figured out, Miss Avery. You don't always have it all figured out. And Dr. Metzler, Chris, always reminded us we didn't always have it figured out. But to have that person, that's when you don't have it figured out, you may have to fall when it catch you. And hopefully, all the lives he's impacted, we can catch somebody else. And they may need to lean over just a little bit. So we know that God loves politics. Love politics. And one of the things we talk about all the time, and we go back and forth. So our next speaker, Nicole Harris, is the Maryland GOP chairwoman.
All right, I'm used to getting up in front of people and talking, and I usually talk from my heart. But I found that when I talk at a memorial, I tend to ramble and make no sense. So I made myself some notes. First of all, everybody that is what they've expressed so far, I see so much of it. Christopher was just the same with each and every one of us because he was just honest and true to his soul all the time. And that is all he was just always true and honest. But I may not have known Christopher as long as most of you, but I was privileged to have met him in 2019. My first thing with him was I didn't actually know whose house I was at for Shannon's kickoff party. But I was inside the house and somebody said, "Oh, let's take a picture, Nicole." And I said, "Okay." And it was with his #conservative swag pillow. You remember the big pillow? Okay. And I was sitting there and I was like, I really am coveting this. I really should not be coveting this, but I'm really coveting this pillow here. And then I got to meet him, at the kickoff and with Shannon's campaign. And in the beginning, I really didn't know what to think of him. He intimidated me. I was like, wow, he's just so brilliant. Everything that he shared, everything that he challenged everybody to do around him, he was just so brilliant, and it really intimidated me at the beginning. But the more we worked together, the more we worked with Shannon, the more we became just the Three Musketeers. Three Musketeers all the way with the campaign. And I realized how similar we were, how many of the similar attitudes we had, the similar thought processes, our world views even, our love of travel. I won't say that I have his love of food though, because I hate eating. But and he told me that I can't hate eating, I need to start learning to appreciate it. So I tried to do that when I'm overseas especially. But I could send him, "Oh, what the hell is that?" kind of text. And he would answer back and he'd go, blah, blah, and I'm like, he knew exactly what I was talking about. There's, how many different things are going on in the news at one particular time. But I would say, what the hell? And he would know exactly which topic I was talking about, and it was just amazing. He quickly became my partner in crime, because we all know he had that mischievous side. And he became my confidant, like he became so many. And he helped get my son into college. And most importantly, is that when my son decided to leave college this last year, at the end of his last semester, he was like, I understand. I understand that the school isn't the right fit for him. I understand that he needs to go a different way. And he encouraged me, and he's encouraged my son to do what fits him and to move forward. And that was really important because that can sometimes be embarrassing. I know I left college when I was younger because I ran out of money. And, people are like, what? You left college? And so, but there was never any judgment with Chris. He knew exactly what that was. I would not be where I am today without having known Chris. Because professionally, he challenged me. He challenged me to do better. He challenged me to get out there to make sure that I actually told myself that I needed to go one step further when I felt that I couldn't. He challenged me to get back in school, and I've done that, and I'll be graduating this fall. So he also challenged me to be a better wife, be a better mother. And I wouldn't be that without some of his advice. And, you know, he just plain challenged me. Like, he would call me up and we'd be having a conversation and he would say, oh, I posed this question to, you know, some legal students. What's your answer to it? And I'm like, I'm not in law school. And he's like, I don't care. What's your answer? And so I'd answer his question. But he just always challenged me to do better, be better, and encourage others to do better. And that's what he did. He was always encouraging us. So over the last few weeks, I've really missed our late night texts, our phone calls in the middle of the day when one of us was walking in or out of a meeting, because we were always doing one or the other, both of us. I miss his talk at you later when he would hang up the call with me. And life's just not going to be the same. So even if you didn't know Chris very long, you probably felt like you did, like you knew him for a lifetime, because I know I did. It's only been 5 years, but I know that I felt like he was a lifelong friend. It was just his warm personality. To his family, I'm so sorry for your loss. But know that he touched all of us, and through all of us, he will live on. And we'll make sure that we do better and encourage others to do better in honor of him. We've lost a bright and shining star who preferred to be the constant supporter and encourager, often behind the scenes. His words will always be with me, and I will always be grateful for the life that he lived and shared with one and all of us. Thanks.
So right now, DEI is a big topic in the country right now. It's probably one of the biggest political topics. And I'm not sure how many people here are aware of this, but Dr. Metzler wrote the literal blueprint for DEI at Cornell. I mean, the literal blueprint. So anytime I would go on TV and have to debate about DEI, I would say, well, I know the person who wrote the blueprint, so you're not going to tell me what it actually is. Dr. Metzler, again, you think about his brilliance. Philosophy, law, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, policy, finance, business, sports. I mean, God, the list goes on and on and on of just how spectacular and amazing of a person he was. And listening to all of these incredible stories, how he impacted people's lives, getting them into college, their children into college, that perpetual encouragement of, you got to keep going. You hit a roadblock, keep going. Mountain's kind of high, dig under it, go around if you can, climb it, but you got to keep going. And I think that speaks volumes of the type of person he was in this individual. You know, this better than all of us. What an amazing, amazing person Dr. Metzler really was. And so on the DEI piece, I think there is certainly going to be a void now that the leading author spent so many years advancing this particular discipline, practice. We're now seeing a lot of businesses roll it back because of politics. And oftentimes I call a doc and say, Doc, I got to talk about this on air. I'm not sure how should I thread the needle on this because I'm aware of the political implications, but I need a little contextual historical background. What am I missing here? And then he would go down the history. And he would say, mention this. And if you're talking about it from a conservative perspective, this is what the audience isn't understanding. That knowledge, hopefully, will continue to live on. Dr. Magna worked with Dr. Metzler at the Lead Fund, specializing in diversity, equity, and inclusion, is our next speaker.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not going to be a good speaker here. Shannon asked me to speak today, and I said, you know, what's interesting is I prepared a few words, but I didn't know if I could make it. Why am I the only one crying? So, it's not been a good few weeks for me, honestly. So, I did work with Dr. Metzler, Chris, because I would would introduce him as Dr. Metzler. He would introduce me as Dr. Magda Chris, my friend Chris. I met Chris at Georgetown. Actually, some of our Georgetown colleagues today, yes, is one of the students where I met her, and Denise and Vince. And just a quick story there is we would, at the start of our monthly meetings, sorry, thank you. We would, at the start of our monthly meetings, when all the deans got together, stand around, and for our Gen X friends, thank you for representing Gen X. We would do a little Spies Like Us, doctor, as we got into the room. So we would do that, and it became our joke at the monthly meetings, right? Did a little of that today. So most of you know Chris. Well, let me just say that I say I'm Chris's best friend, BFF. I'm self-appointed BFF because he and I texted or talked daily for years. And then I'm finding out he texted or talked every time. I wasn't so special. Chris, he made me think I was the only one. But I'm finding out that is not the case. And I asked him, I love it. And I think, how did you start talking? Yeah, what's up with that? So, I was going to say, like many of you know, I had to write it on paper for the young ones because I just couldn't get my stuff together. So many of you know his work through being a political strategist or his DEI work. I met him at Georgetown many years ago. He, professional and poised, always put together. Me, this, a little hot mess with imposter syndrome and a potty mouth, which I will not say here, and cat hair all over my clothes, like total opposites, but we just clicked. We allowed ourselves to be silly in a place such that is like Georgetown University, where it is so steep in tradition. We got to feel silly all the time. I go, come on, take a selfie with me. Come on, do this. So Chris, I would say, was on my personal board of directors. So I do a lot for women in STEM and talk about how every woman and man should, and anyone should have a personal board of directors to guide you throughout your life. Chris helped me negotiate a job. I said, teach me to negotiate like a man. Like, I want a man's salary. And he was like, okay, what would it take? And I said, it would take, and he's like, throw it out there. And you know what, I got it. So I really appreciate him to like, no, dude, state what you want. And state what you know. I didn't have that guidance, right? So I wanted to tell a little bit of a story. I think this happened, Mama Metzler, you can probably refresh my memory of when exactly, a year or two ago. Chris and I are each other's emergency contacts in our phone, right? So a couple of years ago, I'm sitting on the couch. I'm in Pennsylvania, he's in Florida, and I get this emergency alert on his phone coming to me, like something's happening. Emergency alert. I'm like, okay, whatever. I text him, are you okay? And then a few minutes later, it comes again, emergency alert. I'm like, are you okay? And I let it go, and it keeps coming, And I finally say to my husband, I'm getting the emergency alerts from Chris's phone. He's like, what? I say, I don't know what to do with this. I keep trying to call him, I keep trying to text, I'm not getting anything. And I'm calling and nothing. And my husband's like, you gotta call the police, right? And I'm like, where am I? I don't know. Like, where is this? So he, I was tracking his phone, I don't even know, but somewhere in Florida, and then where again. So I called the police, figure out which city this is, and I called the police, and I called the police in the city next, and all over. And I'm taking all these phone calls with the police, giving them his description, his age. I don't know, like, how tall is he? I don't know what he weighs. I don't know, how his exact age. He's like, do you know he's Dr. Christopher Metzler? Just Google him, right? So it was a panic and nothing. And the police would contact me back and say, we went to that location, there's nothing there. And I'm like, oh my God. And the other police officer, we went to that location, there's nothing there. This went on for about 12 hours. So I was like, so concerned about what is happening to him. Like, keep in mind, when I worked with him at Georgetown, he would appear on political shows and get death threats on his phone. He would get death threat calls. So in my mind, he's kidnapped in the trunk of a car going down the highway. That's where I was. But he's totally kidnapped. He's being held somewhere. I don't know what's happening. So about in the evening, he calls me, and it was Chris, what the F, right? To what, da-da-da-da-da. He goes, something's going, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm like, no, are you okay? He goes, no, I'll call you back. And I am like, my husband's standing here, I think he's okay. I don't know, I think he's okay. And I'm helpless. He calls me back, and he's like, my damn phone, da-da-da-da-da, I have a problem with my phone. I said, I'm getting alerts. Like, are there other emergency yeah, well, I'll call you. Oh, okay, hold on, I'll call you back. And I'm like thinking, is he at gunpoint? Is he at I don't know what's happening here. Like, are you being, and I'm like, he calls me back a few minutes later, and I cough twice if you need help, right? And he's like, I'm okay. It's like, Chris, do you know your phone? He goes, yeah, I've been having problems all day. I've been at the Apple store, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, I don't believe you. Like, tell me that, give me proof that you're okay. How do I know you're not? He goes, I'm with my mom. We're going to the liquor store or the wine store. I can take them, get some alcohol. I don't know what it was, right? And I said, no, you're not. And I said, I don't believe you. How do I know for sure that's the case? And he's like, I don't believe, I've had trust issues. And so he ensured he was with his mom. He went into the store, actually, to get whatever, the wine or whatever it was. And I'm talking to him, and I could hear the cashier, and he's like, here, the cashier will tell you. And the cashier is telling me, he's standing there, I was like, is anyone pointing a knife at him or anything? How do I know that's real? And I could laugh about it now, because I definitely was not. And I was so happy to hear his voice. And he gets in the car with his mom. He goes, no, with my mom. I'm like, put Mama on. I need to talk to Mama. I talk to Mama. Mama reassures me that he's okay. I was like, okay, now I'm going to kill you. So I was like, okay, now I'm okay. I talked to Mama Metzler. I am good. And I would tell you, like everyone else said, I've been on the phone with Chris multiple times a day and the text, and I miss that. Pick up the phone every time a little political thing on the news, or a Spice Like Us reference or something like that. Like, I want to just drop them and go, and I don't have that anymore. And so I'm really, really sad about that. But Chris remains my emergency contact in my phone. And I do know that I'm not taking it out. And even though he's not physically here, he's still my emergency contact. We would definitely miss him so much. I know you do too. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here.
So, as Dr. Magda mentioned, politics, God loves politics. I remember when I was exploring getting into television. It's like, Doc, you've been doing TV a long time, with Roland Martin, April Ryan, couldn't be here, Joy Reid, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, C-SPAN. And so he was sort of walking me through the steps, giving me all the rules, like, I know all my material, I'm brilliant, I've worked on enough campaigns, I just want to go into this. And Doc was like, oh, you're sure about that? So the first show I did was Roland's show. I was not sure about that at all. Roland pulls out the iPad, one of my first appearances. Sure, Michael, you sure that's your final statement? Yeah, Roland, I know what I'm talking. You sure? Okay, right now. Yeah, that's not what it says on the website. Doc calls me. You should have been prepared. I told you. I know, guys. I know. Lessons learned. But I met Joy Reid through Doc maybe in 2014, 2015. I'll never forget, Joy was working on the story, I think, at the time. Doc connects Joy and I. Joy calls, hey, sure, Michael, Dr. Metzler said I could call you about this story. And we've become close as friends. Joy, her husband, Jason. And that's the thing about Dr. Metzler. He was like this connector. Yeah. Sort of the cement, the glue that sort of holds everything together. And talking with Joy, I was talking to Michael Still about this a couple of days ago, and he was just saying, man, I met you through Dr. Metzler when you were just an 18-year-old. You think about all of these individuals. You're like, wow, it's like a building on solid foundation. Where would the building be without the foundation? It's kind of hard to imagine. So here's Joy Reid.
Thank you. All right, everybody. I see Uncle Roro over there. I'm under pressure because I'm on with Roland Martin. I'm a little jealous. I'm just say I'm a little jealous because I too am Chris Metzler's best friend. And we too texted every day and every time anything crazy political happened. So I realize now, and my sister here that was near me realized he was not just texting me, he was texting all of you as well. And I am very enraged about that. And I would really like to have a word with Christopher. Because I thought he was just texting me. That really is who Chris Metzler was. I think once you met him, you became his best friend. And I think we all were convinced that we were actually his best friend. Yeah. So I met Chris, see now, Sir Michael calls him Dr. Metzler.
I do.
You do. You're respectful.
Always have.
Young, respectful man, but I just call him Chris. I'm just being honest with you. I met Chris when I was booked to fight with Chris on CNBC. Larry Kudlow booked me to fight with Chris Metzler. Because what his the kind of setup of the show is that they put one Democrat and like 3 Republicans and then they just fight it out. Yeah. But Larry Kudlow's a gentleman, so he would always call me his favorite Obama comment. I started getting on there after I worked on the Obama campaign, after which I dropped the mic and was like, I'll never work on another political campaign. First black president elected, I'm good, I'm a genius. It was all because of me. But people must have thought that because they were booking me like suddenly I'm a pundit. And I get booked on Larry Kudlow's show, and I was literally on there every week. And they would try different people for me to fight with. And I think their favorite person for me to argue with had to have been Chris, because I was booked with him so much, they didn't even realize they turned him into my friend. We finally met in person when I flew up to New York to do the show when I started working on thegrio.com, and now I got a chance to fight with him in person. They put us on, they put me in a car, sent me out to New Jersey. He was up there, and we actually got to fight in person. We exchanged numbers, and we're buddies ever since. I started out wanting Chris as a source, because in the journalism world, you always want to have people in both parties. You know, people don't think I know any Republicans, but I know a lot of Republicans. And I'm friends with a lot of Republicans. I'm friends with Michael Steele. We became friends the same way we used to fight on MSNBC. And it was actually Chris who told me, you got to book this young guy. He's really super smart. His name is Sir Michael. And I was like, his name is Michael? No, his name is Sir Michael. I was like, I need to book Michael? No, Sir Michael. You need to book Sir Michael. He's been trained, he's ready to go, and he would also critique Sir Michael's performance. As soon as the segment was over, he would come back and say, let me tell you everything Sir Michael didn't do right now. You need to book him again, because I got him ready next time. I'm better. So he was both a friend, he was a counselor, he was a critic. He was hilarious. I want to just dispute the sisters who were so brilliant that said he was a tremendously unserious person. Unserious. Because every time something political happened, the first person who would joke about it and make fun of it, even if it was in his own party, was Chris. He had something funny to say about everything to do with the administration of the former president, the current president. He had something to say about everything. And we would text. There was not 2 days that went by that I did not text with Chris. We had like a little group chat with April Ryan. We would all be texting. We had a separate group chat, I think, with Sir Michael. He had group chats, like multiple group chats with different ones of us, convincing all of us that we were his best friend. He then became friends with my husband, Jason. We all became friends. All of us had a little group chat, and we would talk. He was counseling our youngest son, Miles, when he also, to your point, he decided to take some time off of college, which we said, okay. But he wanted to start a business, and the first person I thought that I needed him to reach out to was Chris. Because I knew the best counsel that he could get on how to be in business and how to be an entrepreneur was Chris. And Chris was so kind and patient. We literally were on the phone with Chris 72 hours before I got this news that I didn't believe, that I got from Roland Martin. And I didn't believe it. So, of course, I immediately reached out to Sir Michael and to Michael Steele. Well, first I called Michael Steele, because I'm like, Michael, Chairman, I need you to tell me this isn't true, right? And then I texted Chris's phone. I was like, text me back immediately, like 911. He didn't text me back. And then I reached out to Sir Michael. We just were in disbelief. Chris was such an active presence in my life. I told him I was throwing my 49th birthday party. People thought it was my 50th for some reason, because I think they thought I was older than I was. But it was my 49th, and I threw myself a party. Chris got on a plane and flew up to be at the party. If you asked Chris for anything, he was there in 2 seconds. He counseled our child, counseled our son. He was friends with our family. He became all of our friends. Chris was one of the warmest, most kind person in the world, and he was the human embodiment of the lie that politics is what separates us as people. Chris and I didn't agree on anything. Just like sure Mike and I don't agree on anything. Sure Mike, I'll be arguing with him. I don't agree with Michael Steele on anything. Michael Steele is wrong about everything. He is just wrong. He's strong and wrong, which is worse. But because we don't agree doesn't mean we're going to be friends. Chris is who introduced me to Elroy Saylor, also wrong. Wrong! But we're friends because we respect each other. We respect that we have differences of opinion. That we may not agree on what the tax policy should be. We may not agree on what immigration policy would be. We may not agree on what any policy would be. But as human beings, we loved each other as human beings. We loved each other. He was like my brother. He was a brother to me. Regardless of what we believe, we could step away from that and just talk as people. We could laugh and kiki and be unserious together. We could laugh at the horrors that are happening in the country or the joyful things happening in the country. We could talk about family. We could talk about personal stuff. We could talk about our kids, raising children. We could talk about relationships, whatever it was. I knew that Chris is somebody that I could text at any time of the day or night, and he would have something absolutely unserious to say, which was exactly what I needed. So I just want to say my deepest condolences to his mama. No mother should have to bury their child. It's a thing that is unnatural, as my big brother, Reverend Al Sharpton, said to me one time when his mom died. But you should know that you raised a blessing. The thing that you want to know is that the people you bring into the world, the humans you create, are a blessing to somebody. As you, I think, have now been convinced, your son was a blessing to everybody. And he was an equal blessing to all of us, so much so that we are going to be arguing for the rest of our lives which of us was his actual best friend. Thank you all very much. And it was me. Thank you.
So, I don't know how Dr. Metzler texts so many people. I mean, I don't know how that's even possible. I mean, I'm a bit bewildered at the fact that, I mean, you think of all the people that aren't here that he probably also texts. I don't know how that's possible. Nevertheless, Joy lamented Dr. Metzler recognizing the importance of people coming together despite the divides. I remember a long, long time ago, Dr. Metzler and I talked about German philosopher Hegel. And in one of his writings, Hegel argues that at the base level, every individual is looking for purpose. Every individual is looking for some form of connectedness, community, another individual. And I'll never forget that conversation because it was just a fascinating conversation between Doc and myself. And thinking about that, listening to your remarks, Joy, he embodied so many of these brilliant things he would often talk with me about. And you see it in all of his friends, Democrats, Republicans, didn't care race, what part of the country or the world, it didn't matter. This is who Dr. Metzler was because he knew, as Hegel argued in the mid-1800s, every person is seeking purpose. Every person is looking for connectedness to something or someone. And that someone, outside of Joy for me, was also Roland Martin, who I have known all the way since my days at Morehouse, and got reconnected again through Doc. Called Roland many times, getting his thoughts on TV and politics and policy, and anytime we get on the phone, I would call Roland for one question or comments or thoughts, or I saw something on his show, Roland Martin Unfiltered, and I'm like, oh, Roland, you had this conservative on, you should have called me. Well, Roland likes to beat up on some of the conservatives who he would say, oh, they don't know their stuff. There you go. But Roland, through Dr. Metzler, I learned all of these eager, older African Americans who were experienced, who sort of been through some things in this space, were eager to mentor others who were coming up. Joy, Michael Steele, Reverend Al, Elroy Saylor, who worked at the RNC in a long time in politics with former Congressman J.C. Watts, and then Roland. And so I think, and Chris, I know we've talked about this, all of the people that we have been given access to as seniors, we
because of your son. You don't really think about it until now, and I wish I could have said thank you a whole lot earlier. You presumably knew that we were thankful because we would talk about it, we would laugh about it, we would go out to eat, the three of us together, and talk about a whole lot of things. But today it's a bit different. It's really sort of hitting home. Wow, where would I be if there were not a Chris Metzler? And again, I talked to my parents about this last night. My mom always talking about Doc, and she would say, well, you know, I remember when you met so-and-so, you Dr. Metzler, and I remember you called me so excited, you sent me the photo. And I was like, wow, I've met all of these people through one person. I never met that person. I hope my life would still be what it is today. There's no way of knowing that for sure. Roland Martin.
All right. Now, what Sir Michael didn't say when he came on the show, he was there for the Carson campaign. He started talking about being Carson's HBCU plan. I was like, he ain't got one. And Sir Michael was insistent. And I was like, he ain't Google a damn thing. And so I looked down, I was like, you sure you got a plan? And I'm looking at my iPad going, ain't no plan on this. And he's like, no, I guarantee you it's there. I was like, I'm going to let you go ahead and talk. Go on right ahead. And then when he finished and came back to me, I said, Shelley, pull my iPad up. Anybody who watched my TV One show knew when I say, Shelley, pull up my iPad, your ass in trouble. And I literally typed in HBCU in the search box, and it was nothing. And I went, now he had a plan, they apparently didn't load it. Michael went to the office and cussed everybody out. And he said, how y'all have embarrassing me? I was like, I said, Michael, first rule of television, check before you open your mouth. And the reason that's important because Chris and I, we used to always have these conversations because there are other conservatives who would say, Chris, man, why you go on his show? He don't get mad at you. And this is a quote. Chris said, because I don't fucking lie. He said, y'all lie. You don't cuss me out. But the funny part was this, and some of y'all probably know this here. Chris was one of the few people, he would elongate a cuss word. He would literally, and you like, he would cut it off, he wouldn't put no I-N, apostrophe. No, he would just all, like Chris, do you ever use all of the words and syllables? He cussed elegantly. You ever heard somebody cuss elegantly? They just like, okay, all right, Chris. And so I used to laugh at him cussing. Not the subject matter, how he cussed. And so probably it was a week before, last time we talked. It was probably about a week before, and he's working on his DI book, and he was intentional about wanting a black publicist. And so I gave him 3 or 4 different names, and so he called me, and he said I'd interview one particular person, and we talked about that, and then we started talking about some other stuff, and it was a short call, but it was always hilarious because both of us like to cuss. Cussing keeps your blood pressure low. And both of us understood that. And so we would always have a good time. And the last time he was on our show was our State of the Union show. We were talking about DEI, some other things. It was always a pleasure. And I happened to be, the crazy thing is I was going through my archives. And I've got something like 100,000 plus photos and another 50,000 videos. And I was actually looking for photos because in February we lost Joe Madison, the Black Eagle. And so I was looking through all these photos from Washington Watch. Chris first appeared on my show 12 years ago. And in a number of those shows, he was on with Joe Madison. And so I pulled all the Joe photos and then came across, and I said, wow. I said, Chris was in nearly every show with Joe. And it was always a pleasure because we would always have fun. We would always laugh. We always would talk politics. And I tell everybody, my motto is, if you do good, I'll talk about you. If you do bad, I'll talk about you. At the end of the day, I'm going to talk about you. And so we would often talk about Republicans and Democrats and how they were running campaigns and what they were saying, not what they should be saying. And so it was always a pleasure. And I always enjoyed having him on because, again, he didn't come with talking points. He didn't come speaking on behalf of a party. He came speaking about the issues. And I say this, and look, I've been knowing Black Republicans, I'm born and raised in Texas, for my entire life. And Chris was a brother who loved Black people. And the reason that's important to say is because he would not allow even crazy things that happened in the party to simply just slide by. He would critique those things and criticize them and would say it to folks individually. So that was one of the things that we often talked about. And it's about being a person of integrity, having honor and decency, and principles and morals and values and how they reflect that. And so absolutely we'll miss his smile, we'll miss his wonderful cussing style, and we'll miss those conversations. And you know, what often happens is when someone passes away and we hear people go, oh my God, how old were they? And with 47, and the singer Mandisa just passed away at 47. That was a golfer passed away at 50. And then folks were like, oh my God, how old? Chris was like, oh, he was 59 years old. And what I explain to people is there's not a single day, a single hour, a single minute or second that's promised. And so the real question for everybody, I don't care who you are, is, and you made a point, Michael, in terms of what will folks say. And I don't think the focus of anybody should be what will they say about you at your funeral. The question is, what will you actually do with the time that you have? And every day, every hour has to be intentional. What do you do with it? What do you do with it when it comes to your family? What do you do with it when it comes to how you operate at work? There's so many people who are so focused on work. When Bernard Shaw was interviewed on NPR, and this was before he had passed away, and he was asked the question, you travel so much and you were covering all these major stories and you miss a lot of time at home with family. Was it worth it? And he said no. And so we get so caught up in those things, and I think it's important for all of us to remember, what do we accomplish with the time that we have? What do we actually do? Who do we actually help? Whether you're talking about Worship Michael or Dina, anyone's talking about enjoy as well, how he talked, how he helped, how he counseled. That's what it means to be of help, be of assistance. A few years ago, Brother Ronaldo Glover passed away in Chicago, and he was an alpha brother of mine, and I worked with him. I ran Chicago Defender. He would always, when he would see you, he would always say, how can I be of assistance? And for Ronaldo, it was about using his relationship. I remember he said, I was going to China with the Urban League. He said, if you have any issues, let me know. I have significant relationships in China. I'm like, I ain't trying to get in trouble in China, Ronaldo. I said, that ain't happening. But again, that was his thing. How can we be of assistance? And so I think the through line that you've heard from so many folks here is how Chris was of assistance, helping them, not about him. And I was pulling up, last point I make, I was pulling up my emails, and there was an email that I pulled up, and that was a grant program. I can't remember what it was about. It was a grant program, and he hit me. He said, hey, man, I think this would be perfect for what you're doing with your Black Star Network. And I'll help you go through and filling out the grant. And that's what it means. You can know people, and you can have money, you can have relationships. When you keep them to yourself, then how does that actually help anybody? So I think it's evident by what we've heard here that Chris Metzler didn't just keep it to himself, didn't just hoard it, he also shared it. And the reason folks are connected in this room is because he shared his gift. And that to me is the greatest testament of one's life, how you actually share your gift and be of help to somebody else.
So on that point, Roland mentioned sharing your gift. So the prophet Jeremiah is my favorite prophet in the Bible. Many religious scholars believe that Jeremiah wrote Lamentations. It's around the same period. Now, if you know anything about Jeremiah's story, how he was called to be a prophet. Jeremiah didn't really want to be a prophet. It wasn't something that he was interested in doing. But the Lord said to him, some things you're called to do. I want to say, I called you from your mother's womb to do this thing, to Roland's point of how are you using your gift. If you ever read Lamentations, it's a beautiful poetic, as many religious scholars would refer to it as. But throughout Jeremiah's life, what we know about him from old text, he used his purpose, his gift for a reason. Now the reason I'm drawing this parallel to pick up off of what Roland was saying towards the end of his remarks, that Dr. Metzler, Doc was acutely aware of his gift. He was acutely aware of what he was called to do. He didn't run away from it. One of my favorite scholars once said, when teaching a lesson at Harvard Divinity School about Jeremiah, she said, some people want to be prophets. A lot of people want to do a lot of things, and we kind of run away from those people. It's people who don't really want to do that are really good at things. Dr. Metzler could have done anything he wanted to do. Didn't have to reply to text messages, didn't have to answer phone calls, didn't have to fly up for the 49th birthday, didn't have to help with the son who's trying to figure out his way in life, which he certainly will, both of your sons, of course. Didn't have to help out on the campaign trail, didn't have to manage the campaign flying back and forth, didn't have to do any of those things. His pedigree spoke for itself. He could have done anything he wanted to do. Yet he recognized what he was called to do. He recognized his purpose. So with that, I mentioned at the beginning, there were several individuals that I met in my journey. Lady McAllister, Dr. Metzler, Dr. Tim passed away, Dean Nelson passed away. And I remember the four of them all sort of mentoring this young Shermichael. And you reflect upon every single thing you learned from each of those men. And then you realize, if you put them in the room, I think we all were kind of looking to Doc for the answers. And that's just how phenomenal of a person he was, Lady McAllister.
I'm going to try my best not to be too long. It's interesting that everybody that's come up here has talked about all the different things that Dr. M has done over the course of his career and all the different talents that he had. And for those that had a chance to see the YouTube show that we did during the pandemic, it was called Red and Black. And the moniker was, this is not the color of the conservatism that you used to. And so part of the running joke at the beginning of Red and Black was the fact that Dr. Metzler was so talented and was involved in so many things. So the running joke eventually became that Dr. Metzler did everything and was involved in everything in American history. So for example, we would get on there and we'd have a running joke with Kira Davis, who came on the show and would talk about her husband being from Gary, Indiana, and they went from Gary, Indiana and went to California. I said, I've heard this story before. Is your husband's last name Jackson? And so we would riff off of that and go, no, I'm not related to a Jackson. And I would go, well, that's interesting because Dr. Metzler was there with Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones when he wrote We Are the World. Is that not right, Dr. Metzler? And he would be like, that's absolutely true. And then Kira would chime in. In fact, he actually created the synthesizer that they used to do the rest of the song. And Dr. Metzler, it's also true. So literally, like Peabody and Sherman, like the old cartoon, there was always a running gag at the beginning of the show where Dr. Metzler was helping to draft the Declaration of Independence and, was sitting there with Churchill in the bunker with World War II and all kind of stuff. And it just made me think about all the different things he had done. When I first got the news, I went back and I started looking at Red and Black. Just to hear his wit, see his laugh, see that smile. I mean, I could have dove into all that analysis and all the brilliance that he was, but I wanted to hear the laugh and the wit. And then it made me go back to the pictures. It's interesting that Roland brought this up because, I had the honor of being in one of those pictures with Joe Madison and Dr. Metzler. There's my little goofy self sitting there taking that picture, thinking about how brilliant those men were. And Dr. Metzler was so much in my life and my family's life. I mean, Dr. M was my younger two kids' godfather. The kids knew him when they were younger, and Neelan, who's now 14, was looking forward to having the opportunity to talk to him on a one-on-one basis. We're Catholic. Neal's confirmation's coming up in a couple weeks. Dr. M had already made the plans to come up to Pittsburgh and be there at that confirmation. Dr. M had a chance to see me across a wide range of experiences. Many of you all were brilliant from the outset and did more brilliant things and more brilliant things and more brilliant things. I'm the guy that he was willing to mentor after I stubbed my toe again and again and again. But one of the things I'm most grateful for your son, for you all's family members, the fact that he always believed in me. He believed in me when we were struggling. He believed in me when we succeeded. I mean, one of my favorite stories about Dr. M and his belief in me is when the 2016 campaign, I ran for Congress in my hometown of Pittsburgh, and I refused to endorse Donald Trump, which made Republicans mad because I wouldn't endorse Donald Trump, and it made Democrats mad because I was still Republican. Wonderful place to be in, right? So we didn't get enough signatures to get on the ballot for the primary after I had given up my radio job and my television job with kids and a wife. Wonderful place to be in, right? Dr. Metzler and the Bass sister talked about this as far as that reining people in. You got it, it's all good. Breathe, breathe, breathe. I had that moment with him in 2016. So we got this. We're going to write in and you're going to win the nomination by way of write-in. No one had ever done that in Western Pennsylvania before. So as I kind of at the phone looked at it and said, no one's ever done that before. Breathe, you got this. And sure enough, instead of getting 1,000 signatures, we got 3,000 write-in votes. And ended up going through a campaign. Others talked about him being principled. He gave me the room to be principled. That's one of the beautiful things about him. Roland brought up being on the air and standing up for what's right on a live camera. Not talking points. Knowing that you may or may not get that cachet from those. But saying there's something that lives past you, that means more than just my clicks, what someone's going to say on Twitter, if somebody thinks I'm popular or not. Dr. M always gave me that confidence. He gave that to my wife as she was going back to school in the second act. And every time he heard about her getting a 4.0, he would tell me how brilliant she was and how lucky I was to be married to her. That's just who he was. And I know we want to have a couple more people come up before we go, but more than anything else, you all had a chance to share brilliance with him. If there's anything he did for me, he helped me rediscover my brilliance, maybe, if I'm brilliant. He believed in me past obstacles. He believed in my family and what I could do to not just do it for myself, but this is the thing that everybody hit on. What are you going to do for somebody else? How are you going to help somebody else? Hey, call Shermichael about this. Hey, I'm working on this flag football project with Chris. Hey, I was talking to Joy the other day. Hey, when's the last time you talked to Roland? And not just the famous people. Everybody. There was nobody that was insignificant. You have class or you don't. You have grace or you don't. And everybody who knows me knows my phrase, you're either a child of God or you're not. And he always exemplified being a child of God. And I love calling him that. He will always be that. And I'm going to always try to honor him with what I do because of that. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so we're winding down. 2 speakers left. So a lot of politics, a whole lot of politics. Lenny, I actually didn't know that. So I don't know if you guys understand this from perspective here. Winning a nomination through writing ballots, whether it's 3,000 or 30,000, as a strategist is impeccably hard. I mean, you're going to 3,000 doors, a couple thousand doors, because maybe there's a husband and wife, give or take. You want to make sure that those signatures are verified. You want to make sure that those people are actually voting residents in that particular district. I mean, there's a whole lot into that. So that's actually pretty interesting. I didn't know that. But again, that goes to Doc's out-of-the-box thinking Where most strategists would be like, yeah, I'm sorry, Linda, you're on your own, man. This is over. You need to go back and get that radio job. The doctor's like, let's try to figure this out. And that's the type of person he was. So you think about national politics, local politics, state politics. Doc was involved at really every level. And I remember all of our conversations. Some with Chris on the phone every once in a while. Are you guys watching this race? Or I'm helping out this candidate. Or I'm talking with this committee man or committee woman from the RNC about changing some rules or the importance of the party doing a better job outreaching to communities of color. Nicole Ambrose, Maryland GOP RNC chairwoman, is here, and she knows all too well how important it is to have someone like a Dr. Christopher Metzler being able to connect all the dots. Nicole Ambrose.
See, we believe in talented, strong men helping us. Thank you. All right, what I'm learning here today, and we kind of all knew this, right? Not only was Doc a great connector, but he was constantly educating us, and I just learned for the first time new medical facts from Roland Martin about cursing. So I have educated myself today, thank you. And I learned that, once again, there's common ground because I agree with Joy Reid on something. I never thought this would happen, but here we are. I mean, look at Dr. Metzler bringing us together. God bless that man.
Amen.
Right? Amen. So I, like our chairwoman, Nicole Harris, here in Maryland, met Dr. Metzler at his house, kindly hosting an event, Pastor Shannon, right, a dear, very long-time friend of mine who was running for mayor of Baltimore City. This is a city with 85% Democrat registration, and this woman had the chutzpah, the cojones, and the confidence to run for mayor of the city, which she's doing again right now. And we had a big room, and a ton of people pile into that photo Nicole Harris was talking about cleaning up the city. And Dr. Metzler, even though he knew it was a tough task, even though he knew it was nearly impossible, said, let's do it, let's make a big splash, and she did better, I believe, than any Republican has done since the 1960s with his guidance and tutelage. But aside from connecting, aside from networking, what Dr. Metzler really has forever made the impression on my brain, and I cannot thank you enough as his mother and his family for bringing into this world such an amazing man, is his mentorship. And that's the theme we've heard throughout the day. That he put this love and faith in young people and helped raise them up and lift them up in ways that so few people ever do for another person. Makes me think of Corinthians 1:16-14. Let all that you do be in love. And I'm going to tell you a quick little story about what he did for my son, Britton. Britton, who's been knocking doors with me since he was 10 years old, said, I want to go to MIT. And I'm like, you got a 1520 as 18 out of 1600. I'm not sure if that's going to cut it for MIT, but God bless you, you need to try. You must try. You can't not know the answer. And so Dr. Metzler, I think, meets Britton in Shannon's office right over there. I think we can see it from here in downtown Baltimore. And Britton's like, I really want to go, and I don't know if I'll get in. I know it's really hard, but I want to try. And Dr. Metzler, what did he do? What did he do? Of course, because there's no answer as to what Chris Metzler would do. He said, well, let's try. I know the provost's there. So let's get him some extra letters. Let's do what we can to make the best possible package. And he was with us every step of the way. Okay, so Britton didn't get in. All right, that's okay. Again, he didn't have a 1600, he had a 1520. But what is the point of all this? That Chris was there for him. That someone believed in him. That someone took that effort and time to show he cared and believed. And for a child to know that someone cares that much and will invest in you will make all the difference in the lowest moments of your life and the highest moments of your life. You know that it doesn't matter what, you're loved. You're loved. So I will never be able to thank Dr. Metzler enough for what he did for my son, to give him that belief that even though he was going through a really tough time in his life, someone believed in him no matter what, took that time, invested in him, and loved him. So, God bless. Thank you. I'm honored to be with you all today and to share in the love of a very great man that we miss here, but we know he's looking down on us. Amen. Thank you.
I remember this quote that Doc mentioned to me a couple of years ago. I don't remember what book it was from. But he said, only those who dream the impossible can make the impossible commonplace. And Nicolette talked about Doc being there for her son and the difference that that made. Only those who dream the impossible can make the impossible commonplace. Doesn't always mean you're going to get there, but it's the effort. And I think that's what Doc understood most, was the effort. Before we go to Pastor Wright, one of Dr. Metzler's longtime friends, I've known him for a very, very long time, is going to come up quickly and make some remarks with joy. You want to still come up? You want to?
Go, you got it? Okay,
You got it?
She was shy. So
It's okay. It's okay.
The doors of the church are open. I'm gonna walk her down the, you know what I mean, in the sanctuary. She good now. She's got her right.
I'm sorry. To debold the whole itinerary. So, yeah. So, hey y'all. Hi. How y'all doing? Hi. Okay. I'll try to keep it together. Cause I'm trying to keep it together.
Can't be the only one.
Look me up, bro.
You good? You good? You good? You good?
Yeah, but I know that I couldn't not give the honor and grace to the family, because Chris was like family to me. I met Chris years ago in South Florida. I think it was during the gubernatorial campaign, I think that was going on at the time. 2016, was it? It was a while ago. And literally, the minute I met Chris, it was like we knew each other 500 years ago, butterflies in a field somewhere in Kazakhstan. And I was like, oh my God, and we connected. And it's interesting, the stories that I'm hearing tonight, because the Chris I know is a very, very, very special kind of Chris. I don't have much political background stories. I don't have much, I guess, philosophical stories. But we were definitely two peas in a pod. And we would get into some comments, as they would say. And, you know, he really just means so much to me. We just got through so much together. We would hang out every weekend when we were in South Florida. Then we would be connected again in New York when he was up there working on his DEI initiative. And when he was not happy with me, he would strips me. That was his thing. I think the family knows. Anybody who has Caribbean background, Chris will strips whenever I did not make him proud. But he will come back around. It was always, always, always encouraging. I'm just so elated to hear about the impact he's made outside of my own life, and he will never, ever, ever be forgotten. And thank you for sharing your son with the world and with us. It's just changed our lives forever, and I'm so grateful for it. So I won't stay long. I just wanted to give him that grace and love. Thank you.
Keep all the mics. So we're going to have some final remarks from Pastor Shannon Wright, who's really worked hard to pull this all together. I would say Chris, myself, and Lenny did a little bit of work, but I guess as my mom would say, if you want to get something right, you got to have a woman involved. I'm kind of learning that as I get ready to get married. So that's good advice, Pastor Wright. That's good advice. Okay. And then we may hear something from the family if we so choose. Pastor Wright.
teamwork.
I see that. I see the team.
Whew. So, about that team, Dr. Metzler didn't just talk to me or help me. He worked with my husband. And most of you, I'm sure you wouldn't know, my husband did his video editing work. And when he would call at night, he would speak to the both of us. And he would say things, and the two of them would just be chuckling like teenage boys. And I didn't understand. It's like, first of all, it's late, go to bed. Open it. Get off the dang phone. But this was our time to chat and to talk and to commiserate about what had happened during the day. It was always late at night. And it was after 11 o'clock, sometimes after 11:30, after his last meeting. And I gotta say thank you to you, my Caribbean, Cuban, angry husband, for this man, half Jamaican, half Cuban, okay? For not getting mad when my phone rang late at night with another man on my phone.
That's big time.
So I learned a little trick about that. Always put your phone on speaker. So that, everything is great and above board.
Right.
Chris was like a best friend and a brother. And I know I'm standing when I should say Dr. Metzler, but to me he was Chris. And he ran my last campaign. My campaign manager of record was Nicole. But my campaign manager, who actually told everybody what to do, including me, was Chris. Even when he wasn't running the show, he was running the show, and that's just the way he was. But I don't know how many of you realize that he was really a softie. And when we first met, we met at a family meeting in DC. It was a very political meeting at Star Parker's office. And I knew who he was. And I went up to him and I said, "You don't know me. And you're going to want to tell me no. But I'm really going to need you to tell me yes." And he just looked at me and he said, "Okay." And I said, "Let me preface this by saying, we live in the same councilmanic district in Baltimore, and I literally know where you live, so you're really going to need to think twice about this." And he said, "Well, that's a great setup." And I said, "I'm going to need you to manage my campaign." And he bust out laughing. And I said nothing, and I just looked at him. And I waited for him to stop laughing. And he said, "You're serious?" And I said, "I absolutely am." "Well, what about me makes you think I'm not serious right now?" "I know who you are. I know what you do. And I know I need you to help me turn this city around." I said, "And if that's not enough, think of your property taxes on the house. Come on, man." He was always there. With some of my harebrained ideas, he listened. Then he would go behind my back and talk to my husband and say, "Please get her to not do that." He pushed me to do things that I didn't want to do, like wear the color red. And I'm wearing this color for him specifically. In my campaign, he threatened me with a stylist. And I said, you want to tell a black woman what to wear? I'm not sure you understand the concept of what you're doing here. My husband doesn't tell me what to wear. And he said, "Well, you'll either listen or we're going to bring in a stylist." I said, "Well, okay." He insisted that I needed to have a pair of red bottom shoes to be taken serious as a woman in politics. And I said, "Okay, well, when you wear some red bottoms, I will happily wear some red bottoms." So he thought that was funny, and he talked to my husband and my sister to try to get me to listen. So one afternoon, I went on a shopping spree to DSW with my sister, and I found a pair of red bottom high top Tims. And I bought them. And I took a picture with my feet crossed up on my desk and sent it to him, and I said, "You win, there's your red bottoms." I have never heard him sputter and spit so much. He was so upset with me. But I said, "Listen, I'm fighting a war in Baltimore. I can't wear heels? Man, I need to be able to move. I'm in these mean streets. My mom was a teenager when she had me. My grandparents didn't really believe in education. My grandmother used to say to us all the time, you're born black, you're going to die black, so you might as well get whatever you can. My mother learned a little after the fact the importance of education. And her education got us out of the projects. When I met Chris and we started to really click and he agreed to take on my campaign, I said to him, I said, I need to ask you why. Why? I don't have the pedigree you do. I don't have the background that you do. Why? And he said, because I asked you a question and you told me the truth and nobody else in that room would. So I'm always going to tell the truth. I was born poor and black. I can't get no more of either one of them. So what I got to lose? I'm going to tell you the truth. And as I get older, I recognize the value in telling the truth is you don't have to remember the lies. Because as I get older, I can't want to remember the lies. I'm telling you the truth. Whether you like it or not, he respected that, and he always did that. So there's definitely a void in the spot that will not be filled. But I know there's a phrase, a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And although his lifetime wasn't as long as I would have liked it to be, he was the type of friend that you would want to have for a lifetime. And to his family, thank you all for being part of the recipe that made him. When you look at family, you learn from things you want to do, things you don't want to do, and things you hope to never have to go through and do. And he was one of those that could take all those parts and put that recipe together to be the exemplary man he was. So to all of you, thank you for having a part of that. Kenny, would you like to come?
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of my mother, my sister, and my other brother, I'd like to thank you all for coming here and showing the love to my brother. You know, I hear all your stories, and I have to say, I don't know that Christopher. Right? The Christopher I know is the Christopher that would call me up, tell me to haul my ass, hang up the phone, and not answer when I call him back. Right? Right. The Christopher I have to look at and say, hey, Chris, your shoes are on the wrong feet. Right? While you give me a lecture about something else I was doing. But I hear all your stories and I have to say this is the Christopher he's always been. Because as a child, well, he was never really a child. He was always a little adult. He used to watch over me and my brothers and sister, and he would keep a notebook. So he could report back to my parents exactly every naughty thing we did. Right? He'd go back to her and he said, this is what Dean did, this is what Kenny did, this is what Michelle did. But he had to because we were rambunctious children. Growing up in the islands, you know, we would set the backyard on fire. You know, we would run down to the fort that's 10 miles away. Christopher would reel us back in, have us sit down, play school. He'd have us play airplane, which now we all know why. It's because that's who he was going to be, right? Education, and he loved to travel. And to me, Christopher was a stitcher, and you could all see it here, how he stitched all of you in. When my father passed away, he stepped right in to be the patriarch of the family. He said, I'm not going to let this family fall apart. And again, stitched us all back in. Always to remind us that we were Grenadian and we were family. And to each and every one of you is exactly what he did. He pulled you all back in. He said, you are all family. And remember, you are family. Remember that each and every one of you need to stick together. So do unto others as you have them do unto you. All right? And remember to tell everybody before they leave that you love them. My last words to Christopher was okay. because I thought Christopher was coming back in the building. So I said okay when he asked me a question. I did not take the time to say, I love you. And that's my mistake, because the rest of my life I have to live with the fact that I didn't tell him how much I loved him when he was here. So on that note, guys, I heard this saying that said, there's 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, 365 days in a year. We're only given so much time. So take that time to tell the people you find important that you love them. And each and every one of you in here let me know that Christopher touched you and you loved him. So take that same love and share it out to everybody else. As I said, we all, you know, Christopher's a Republican. I'm not. So we always have our arguments, right? And it's the duality of Chris, right? DEI specialist, but a Republican. Christopher had several cars, but never learned to drive. Just in case you show up to his house, he's like, I need a ride. You drive. Right? But this is who he is. And to me, like I told my family, he was that glue that kept us together. And he's that glue, that string that's going to keep all of you together. So look at everybody's face in here and remember, Christopher put you all together, and it was for a reason. For you to do great things. So continue to do the great things that you're doing. All right? Thank you all from the bottom of my heart for what you have said and what you have meant to my brother. Thank you.
So that brings today's memorial to an end. We want to thank the Bygone for giving us this space to celebrate Dr. Metzler's life. I remember when we were talking about finding a place to do this with Pastor Wright. Doc loved his really nice fancy places, so she said it has to be a beautiful place. And you also got a great view. We thought this would be the kind of place that Doc would enjoy. So we want to encourage you all, if you have time, if you can, to patronize the place, have some drinks, get some food if you can. The food is really lovely here. We thank you all so much, and our condolences again to the Metzler family. Thank you all.
Everything.